Hello all my dear students and welcome to Sri Jendra Rank Zone classes. I am your faculty Amit Ajmani, and in this lecture we'll be starting up a new chapter, that is chapter number 2, in which we'll be studying about sentences types. We'll be studying about active and passive voice, and we'll be studying about direct and indirect speech. Now students, before taking up this particular chapter, let me tell you a few things. These are all the things that we have done in our junior classes, but the problem is that they were so simple and we have done them such a long time back that we don't remember these things at the moment. So we need to brush up with our concepts. At times, while doing this chapter, you will be like, sir, these are very simple and basic things. Yes, of course they are. And trust me that there are so many times when you will be learning few things which you till date have never even listened. So, for taking up good communication, for taking up good English skills, we need to relate first of all the basic sentences, how sentences are formed, how we are going to make use of the very small basic things. In this chapter, what are the learning objectives? We will be able to recognize and understand the meaning of given grammatical structures in written and spoken form. We will be analyzing the grammatical structure of sentences using grammatical terms correctly, and will be able to demonstrate the knowledge of grammatical structure of sentences contributing to the coherence of the paragraphs and texts. Here we'll make use of the grammatical structures meaningfully and accurately, both in oral as well as written work. We will identify and rectify the errors when using targeted grammatical structures. We'll be able to understand the importance of grammar in language learning. We'll be able to differentiate between a phrase, a clause, and a sentence. We will gain detailed knowledge of the types of clauses and recognizing the components of any particular sentence. Then we will identify the various types of sentences based on their functionality and based on their structure. We will be learning about active and passive voice, and we will learn about reported speech. So this is all what we are going to learn in this chapter. So I hope you are ready to start up with the chapter. Let us start up with the introduction part. Now, when we talk about linguistics, what exactly grammar means? Grammar means a set of structural rules which govern the composition of various clauses, phrases, and the words which are given in any given natural language. So grammar are the set of structural rules. This term grammar also refers to the study of such rules, and this field will include phonology, morphology, and syntax, which are often complemented by phonetics, semantics, and pragmatics. So now the words which I have circled, listening to these words, I think you must have got a basic idea that this chapter is not a junior level chapter grammar. It is much more than that. So first of all, let us try to relate the words. What exactly are these words that I have circled? Let us try to understand what is syntax. Syntax is the arrangement of words and phrases to create well-formed sentences in a language. This is called syntax. What is morphology? Morphology is the study of forms of things in a particular form, shape, or structure. Talking about semantics. Now, what exactly is semantics? The branch of linguistics and logic concerned with the meaning, that is called semantics. In these semantics, we have got two main areas. One is logical semantics. Logical semantic means we are concerned with matters such as the sense and reference and presupposition and implications. And the second main area of semantics is lexical semantics, which is concerned with the analysis of word meanings and the relations between them. The next term you must be acquainted with is phonology. It is the science of speech sounds, including especially the history and theory of sound changes in a language or in two or more related languages. That is phonology. What is pragmatics? Pragmatics is the branch of linguistics dealing with language in use and the various contexts in which that language is used. So, syntax, morphology, semantics, phonology, pragmatics, all these things are of vital use while we are trying to make sentences. Fine. This is what we'll be studying about in detail. Talking about grammar, grammar is the system of a language governed by rules. When the language development took place, there were no such rules which were formed. But with the passage of time, there was need felt for making certain rules. Those rules are included in grammar. Initially, when sound communication that started, it was only done through sounds. But with time, very slowly and gradually, words, then phrases, then sentences were formed and a language was created. Right? It doesn't mean that once it is a set rules of grammar for a language have been set and that is all. No. No language is static. It evolves and changes over time. So many new things added up depending upon the need and depending upon the requirement of the circumstances. When we talk about grammar, it is simply a set of rules that people follow in order to interact at a particular time, in order to make sentences, in order to make a language. When we are just trying to speak to express ourselves, the knowledge of grammar of a language is not much necessary. Why? Because all of us speak a particular language or we may speak multiple languages without any awareness of the basic rules and structures. But if we want to learn a foreign language, then grammar becomes a necessary tool. Why? Because there grammar helps us to attain competency in it more quickly and efficiently. If we are familiar with the grammatic rules of that language, it is going to help us in building proficiency in the written and spoken formats. And that is why the knowledge of grammar becomes mandatory, becomes essential, becomes very important. So let us start up with a few basic things. Let us try to understand what exactly are phrases, what are clauses, and what are sentences. All these three of them, whether it is a phrase or a clause or a sentence, these are three structural units that create meaning in a language. All of them comprise of groups of words which have got meanings. Right? Now, understanding these basic units phrases, clauses and sentences that is considered to be the foundation of learning English grammar. So let us start up with each one of them separately and individually. First of all, let us try to understand phrases in a better way. What exactly is a phrase? A phrase is a group of words that make sense but not complete sense. That is a phrase. And because it is not making complete sense, phrases cannot stand alone. They are used as a part of a sentence but not standalone. For example, if I am saying in the north, now this is a group of three words in the north. It makes some sense, but we are still confused what exactly is in the north. Who exactly is in the north? What is the speaker trying to say? In the north, it is not making complete sense. Similarly, a yellow dress. Similarly, at 5 o'clock. What at 5 o'clock? We do not exactly relate just by listening to at 5 o'clock. So these are phrases which are a group of words. They have their meanings, but they do not convey a complete meaning. Then we come to clauses. Now, what exactly a clause? Clause is again same as that of a phrase. It is also a group of words which contains a subject and a predicate. Such a group of words which contains a subject and a predicate, they are known as clauses. Now, a clause can make complete sense on its own, or it may form a part of a sentence. Both the types can be used. And depending upon their uses, there are two main types of clauses. First is the main or independent clause, and the second one is subordinate or the dependent clause. Now, what are these? Main and independent clause and subordinate or dependent. Let us try to have some more insight knowledge about these. Talking about main or independent clause, this main clause has a subject, it has a predicate, and it can stand by itself as a complete sentence. It does not depend on any other particular group of words for its meaning. For example, he has a chain of gold. This in itself seems to be a complete sentence having a subject he and the rest of the part as predicate has a chain of gold. Similarly, Reena lives in London. This is also a complete meaningful sentence which is having a subject Reena and lives in London as the predicate. So this is a main or independent clause. Second type of clauses are subordinate or dependent clauses. Now, a subordinate clause also consists of a subject and a predicate, but it does not make any complete sense on its own. And that is why it is called to be dependent clause, because it is dependent on the main clause. Only then the reader will be able to understand it fully. For example, he has a chain which is made of gold. Now, which is made of gold is a subordinate clause. It is a group of words which is made of gold, but this which is used for what? We have to relate it while we are just reading the full sentence, that this which is used is for the chain that is made up of gold. Similarly, this is the place where the accident happened. Now, where the accident happened, in itself it is a group of words, but it is dependent on the first main clause. This is the place. So this where word is dependent on this place, right? So these are the subordinate or dependent clauses. So these are the two types of clauses: main clause, which is also known as independent clause, and subordinate clause, which is also known as a dependent clause, right? Next, we'll talk about the third fundamental unit, that is a sentence. Now, what is a sentence? A sentence is a group of words that make complete sense to a reader. This sentence typically contains a subject and predicate. These sentences are of various types. They may be a particular statement, they may have a question in them, there may be some exclamation or command. So there are different types of sentences, and all these sentences consist of a main clause, and sometimes they may contain one or more subordinate clauses. Another characteristic of a sentence is that it always begins with a capital letter and ends with a full stop. A finite verb is an essential component of any particular sentence. Depending upon the type of sentence, a sentence can be short and sweet, it may be long, it may be complicated. We can lengthen any particular sentence by adding various things like objects or the complements or phrases or clauses. All these things may be added to sentences in order to lengthen them and to make them structurally and semantically complicated. Just taking an example, how we lengthen them by adding various phrases and clauses and objects. For example, I like films. It is a complete sentence just containing three words. I can lengthen this by just adding an adjective to films. I like horror films. Now I have added horror, and this in itself is again a complete sentence. I like horror films which are based on true stories. Now I have added a subordinate clause and lengthen it. I like horror films which are based on true stories and terrify me completely. So, which are based on true stories, terrify me completely. These are two different subordinate clauses which we have used in order to lengthen this particular sentence, I like horror films. So all the examples given above are sentences. It may be short, intermediate, or we can just lengthen them by adding various objects and phrases and clauses. So these are typically our three basic sentence formers. That is, whether we are talking about a phrase or a clause or a proper, full, complete, meaningful sentence. Fine. Now, in these sentences, we said that there is a subject and there is a predicate. These are the two primary structures on which any particular sentence is based on. However, you should understand that all the components of a sentence are needed to be grasped in order to get the basics of grammar. And what are these basic parts of a sentence? Let us try to relate one by one. These are the basic parts of a sentence. In a sentence, we have a subject, we have a predicate, we have a direct object, we have an indirect object, we have an object of the preposition, we have verbs, we have phrases, we have complements. Subject, you are familiar with. What is a subject? What is a predicate? You know, right? What are verbs? What are phrases? You know. But what are these direct objects and indirect objects? What are the object of the preposition? What are complements? These things are not much clear to most of the students. And this is what we are going to study about. So let us try to explain each and every basic part of a sentence in a bit detail. We have named all these parts to be the basic parts of a sentence. Let us start up with the first part, subject. Similarly, we'll be taking up all the other parts also. Now, what is a subject? The subject is the person or a thing talked about, means about which something is stated. That is a subject. And what is a predicate? The predicate is the part of a sentence that tells us something about the subject. So these two are interrelated things in a sentence. A subject is the thing or person talked about, and whatever detail is being talked about that subject, that person, that thing, that forms the predicate. With the help of an example, you will be able to relate better. Let us see. My brother works in Dubai. Here we are talking about my brother. So my brother is the subject. And what is being talked about this brother? That he works in Dubai. So this is the predicate part. Next example, the train arrived late. In this sentence, we are talking about the train. So the train becomes the subject. And what is the detail mentioned about this train? That the train arrived late. So this forms the predicate part. Next example, the old woman was walking down the street. The old woman is the subject here, including the word the. The old woman is the subject who is being talked about. And what is being said about the old woman? That she was walking down the street. This forms the predicate. Next example is, this is my bag. We are talking about this is the subject. Now what is this? This is my bag. This is the predicate. The weather in Mumbai is hot and humid. Now what is hot and humid? The weather in Mumbai. So we are talking about the weather in Mumbai. It becomes the subject. And what kind of weather is there in Mumbai? The detail is that the weather in Mumbai is hot and humid. That forms the predicate. Now when we take up these classes and we take up these examples, students are normally of the opinion, which I think most of you were also thinking about the same thing. Sir, at this level, are we going to study such basic things? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. You have to, because these basic things are often ignored or forgotten, and these basic things only form the basis of the more complex things. So of course you need to relate. You already have studied all these things. You just need to brush up your concepts so that you become ready for the complex things that are going to come. Getting my point? So don't take all these things casually. They are equally important, right? Now, in the wave examples, whatever was written in bold, it tells the names of a person or place or thing about which or about whom something is being said. So that is why we call them subjects. And apart from that, the second part of the sentence, which states something about the subject, that is the predicate part, right? So the first two basic components are the subject and the predicate. Now coming to the third main basic part of a sentence, this is direct object. Now what exactly is a direct object? A direct object is a person or thing that is affected by the action of the subject. I repeat, subject is the person or thing talked about, and direct object is that person or thing which gets affected because of the action done by the subject. So we can directly say that the direct objects receive the action of the verb. They normally follow the verb in the sentence, and they normally answer the question what. Let us try to understand it. with the help of examples. For example, Ram kicked the ball. Now the subject in the sentence is Ram. We are talking about Ram. He has done an action, kicked. This is the verb. Kicked the ball. What exactly Ram has done? Kicked the ball. So this kicked the ball, whole of it becomes the predicate. Now in this predicate, we have divided this predicate into these two parts. One is the verb part. What Ram has done? Kicked. And what exactly is being affected by the action done by Ram? Who is getting affected? The ball. So the ball, the words written in bold, they are our direct object, and they are giving the question to the answer. What? Ram kicked what? Ram kicked the ball. Similarly, the ball hit Sheila. The ball is the subject, hit Sheila is the predicate. Out of this hit Sheila predicate, hit is the verb and Sheila is the person who is affected by the hitting of the ball. So Sheila is the direct object because Sheila is receiving the action of the verb hit. Right? Next, Ruhi repaired the computer yesterday. Ruhi is the subject. Repaired the computer yesterday. This whole is the predicate which is divided into main verb repaired. And what is being repaired? The computer is being repaired by Ruhi. So the computer becomes the direct object. Similarly, we built a castle on the beach. We is the subject. Built a castle on the beach is the predicate. In this predicate, the main verb is built, and what is being built? It is a castle. So, a castle is built by us. So, a castle is the direct object. I have baked a cake. I is the subject. Have baked a cake is the predicate. The main verb is baked. What have I baked? I have baked a cake. So the cake becomes the direct object. So in these sentences, the ball in the first sentence, Sheila in the second sentence, computer in the third sentence, castle in the fourth sentence, and cake in the fifth sentence. These are the direct objects because they receive the action from the subject. What have I baked? A cake. What have we built? A castle. What has Ruhi repaired? The computer. What has been hit by the ball? Sheila. What has Ram kicked? The ball. So these are our direct objects. Now in all these sentences, what we have seen, the sentence structure is subject, then verb, then object. As we have seen, Ram kicked the ball. Subject Ram, kicked is the verb, ball is the object. The ball hit Sheila. The ball is the subject, hit is the verb, Sheila is the object. Ruhi repaired the computer yesterday. Ruhi is the subject, repaired is the verb, the computer is the object. Fine. So these are the direct objects. Now we will study about the indirect objects. Now what exactly are indirect objects? An indirect object is a person or thing that the action is done to or for. What exactly is meant by this? Just wait for 2 minutes. I'll tell you with the help of examples. Now these indirect objects, they usually come just before the direct object. We have already understood what direct objects are. Just before them, these indirect objects will come and they can be called the receiver of the direct object. Now please try to relate and differentiate the languages. The direct objects were the receiver of subject, the action done by the subject, whereas the indirect objects are the receiver of the direct object. They directly follow the verb and normally answer the question whom. Let us see. I made Neha pasta for lunch. Now, I is the subject. Made Neha pasta for lunch is the predicate. Fine. Made is the main verb. Now, I made what? I made pasta. Pasta is the direct object. And I made pasta for whom? I made pasta for Neha. So this Neha becomes the receiver of pasta. Lucky girl. But this Neha now is the indirect object. Let us try to relate with one more example. We built him a castle on the beach. The sentence we have taken in direct object was we built a castle on the beach. So we was the subject, built is the main verb. We built what? We built a castle. So the word a castle is giving the answer to the question what? We built. We did a verb. We did an action of building. Building what? A castle. So a castle is a direct object. But whom are we building the castle for? We are building a castle for him. So him becomes indirect object because this is for whom the castle is being built. Another example. Preeti is writing me a letter right now. Preeti is the subject. She is doing an action of writing. Writing what? A letter. So a letter becomes direct object because it is giving the answer of what. And for whom is she writing the letter? This is for me. So me becomes indirect object. Fine. Next example is I have made my mom a promise. I is the subject. Made is the main verb. What is being made? A promise is being made. So a promise is the direct object. Now for whom is the promise made? This is made for my mom. So my mom becomes the indirect object. Next example is Miss Nair teaches us English grammar. Miss Nair is the subject, the doer of the action. What action is she doing? Teaches. Teaches means action means verb. So Miss Nair is teaching. What she is teaching? English grammar. So this English grammar is giving the answer to the question what. So what exactly will be English grammar? It will be the direct object. And whom she is teaching English grammar? Us. So us becomes the indirect object. Two things. Number one, I hope that after taking all these examples, you will be able to relate what are direct objects and what are indirect objects. Right? Here in these five sentences, we have seen Neha, him, me, my mom, us. These are the ones for whom something is done. That is why they are called indirect objects. Right? And second important thing is that once again I am repeating that after doing this direct and indirect objects, I think most of you will be now more focused and more inclined on doing this chapter because this is something which most of you never knew before. Right or wrong? You give the answer to yourself. You better know honestly whether you knew the details of these basic things. These are objects. We have just studied that any sentence we are talking about, there is a subject, there is a verb, and there is an object. But we never exactly got into the detail of the types of objects. That objects are also of two types. direct object and indirect object. And when we are talking about these kind of sentences in which we have got indirect objects, then the structure of the sentence is, first of all, we have written the subject, then we have written the main verb, then the indirect object, and then the direct object. So in the sentences in which indirect objects are used, please relate the placement of the indirect objects. These indirect objects are before the direct object and after the main verb. They are in between the main verb and the direct object in the sentence. Clear? So these are direct and indirect objects. Now let us come to one another important thing which I am sure you don't know, most of you of course, the object of the preposition. This is the third type of object. One we studied the direct objects, another indirect objects, and next ones are the object of the preposition. Now what exactly is this? Let us see and understand. The object of the preposition is a noun or a pronoun that completes its meaning. And this is normally following a preposition. That is why it is called the object of the preposition. For example, the dog is looking at dash. Looking at what? There must be some noun or some pronoun here. The dog is looking at the ball. The dog is looking at the house. The dog is looking at the car. The dog is looking at the mouse. The dog is looking at me. The dog is looking at him. The dog is looking at Ramesh. Anything. So this sentence, the dog is looking at, is incomplete because we don't know what the dog is looking at. Right. Now, when we complete the sentence by filling this blank with anything, the dog is looking at the mouse, the car, the building, the house, the pen, Ram, Sham, Sita, Mohan, Geeta, him, her, them, whatever. Now, these words which are coming after this preposition at, this is the object of the preposition at. The dog is looking at what? So normally there will be some word which will give us the answer to any WH question. We'll take more examples to understand, but I hope the first example is clear to you that the dog is looking at. This at is a preposition and the word which is completing the sentence after this preposition becomes the object of the preposition. Let us take another example. You are going to dash. Once again, of course, this sentence is incomplete because we don't know where you are going. Right. Now, any word which is coming here at the end is coming after this word to, which is a preposition. So once again, now the word which will be coming will be the object of the preposition. For example, any place. You are going to Kolkata, you are going to Madurai, you are going to Delhi, you are going to US, you are going to Dubai, you are going to Australia, right? You are going to Sector 9, you are going to any particular street. So this Kolkata, this is the name of a place, which is a noun. And after to it is coming, so it becomes the object of the preposition to. Now there are certain times when there is some confusion regarding the indirect object and regarding the object of the preposition. Just try to relate a few examples for that. For example, Lalit gave Rima the pen. Here we can see Lalit is the subject, gave is the verb, the pen. Lalit is giving what? The pen. So this is direct object and the word Rima is whom is the pen given? To Rima. So in that case, it will be indirect object here. Because why? It is coming between verb and direct object, and importantly, because there is no preposition after which this word Rima is coming. But if we have written the sentence in a different way, like Lalit gave the pen to Rima. Now once again, Lalit remains the same, the subject who is giving. Gave is the verb. What exactly is Lalit giving? Lalit is giving the pen. This becomes the direct object. Now he is giving the pen to dash. So now this word Rima is not an indirect object. Now this word Rima becomes the object of the preposition to. Right? Now these two sentences have the same basic meaning, but structurally they are different. And very importantly, you need to relate the placement of the objects. Whenever we are talking about an indirect object, the sentence structure is subject, then we wrote the verb, then the indirect object, and then the direct object. But when we talk about the object of the preposition, it is usually subject plus we have said verb, then we have got a direct object, then we will have a preposition to, of, on, in, for, from, by, and then we will have this particular word which acts as object of preposition. So this object of preposition will come after any preposition at the end of the sentence usually. And indirect object comes between verb and direct object. So there must not be any kind of confusion regarding the indirect object and the object of preposition. I hope it is all crystal clear now with the help of this simple example, and with the help of these placements you should be able to differentiate between the indirect objects and the objects of the prepositions, right? So now once again, how we are going to distinguish between indirect object and object of preposition? The object of preposition comes immediately after the preposition, whereas an indirect object does not come immediately after preposition. An indirect object is usually followed by the direct object, whereas the object of the preposition does not follow this principle. Got it? So these are the three types of objects that we have talked about. I'm ending the lecture here only, but before ending, let me tell you what exactly we have been up to. We have studied first of all about phrases, about clauses, about sentences. We studied about the main clause, which is also called independent clause, and the subordinate clause, which is also known as dependent clause. Then we started up with the basic parts of a sentence. We studied about the subjects. We discussed about the predicate. We discussed about the three types of objects, that is direct object, indirect object, and objects of the preposition. We saw their location, position, and we saw how to just recognize all these. Direct object gives us the answer of what. The main verb is doing what. What is being effected by the main verb or the subject, that is a direct object. Indirect object is mainly for whom or by whom. This question is answered by indirect object. And object of the preposition follows a preposition. Right? We are doing till here only. I want you people to first of all relate and learn all the details about these things, especially the types of object, direct, indirect, and object of the preposition. And in the next lecture, we will study in detail about verbs, phrases, complements. Clear? So this is all for today's lecture. I hope you have understood everything, and I'm sure that you will be going through all the details and fixing the details in your mind before we take up the next lecture. Right? Until then, be happy, stay healthy, and have a good time. Thank you so much for being with me.